Last year, I harvested 459 pounds of pumpkins that grew out of a single compost pile. This year, I decided to make something like 8 to 10 compost piles. I kind of lost track, but I was thinking, what if we could make 2 tons of pumpkins in 1 year? Well, today I'm going to show you how that's turning out. And as you can see, it's going pretty well so far. Right here was a compost pile, and this was a pretty sandy, miserable area, but we dumped a bunch of compost there, put some of our mixed up Seminole pumpkin crosses in here, and now that the vines are starting to die back, it's gotten hot. I know I'm just gonna have to start harvesting these. That one's no good. That's a sign that it's no good. It's all chewed up on the bottom. But you can bring them in, let them cure for a little bit. They'll taste delicious. But I know because the vines have died back a lot that these are pretty much done doing the growing that they are going to do. I like that shape. That's a pretty classic one there. Little bitty one. Normally I wouldn't cut them when the stem is this green, but this one needs to be cut because the vines are dying back anyways. There's a bigger one. It's got a nice neck on it. It's probably fed by the worm bin. Nice big chunky one there. So I'd say this is about 75 to 80 pounds out of that one compost pile. Last year we had the pumpkins just run and run and run and run over a huge area. That didn't do nearly as well as the compost pile pumpkins that we had on the other side last year. So 459 pounds, of which about 300 and something pounds were early in the year, and then the pumpkins came back to life and they bore again in the fall. We might get another round out of these, but I'm gonna guess we don't get more than 100 pounds out of that compost pile. So let's go look at some of the other ones and how they're doing and see if we can bump these numbers up a little bit. Over here where we had our chickens this last year, I planted some more seeds, but I don't see any results in here. I see a lot of dying pumpkin vines. They ran like crazy, filled the whole area up with pumpkin vines. Maybe too much nitrogen, but I'm not really seeing pumpkins in here. So this area where the chickens were, that looks like a pumpkin fail. This area over here had a combination of pumpkins and African jelly melons growing out of this pile. You can see the jelly melons are in here still. Jelly melons are kind of disappointing. They aren't really that great to eat, and they weren't as productive as I'd hoped. I'd hoped for big, huge piles of them, maybe that we could feed the animals if we didn't like them. But they started to die back when it got rainy. They apparently don't like a lot of water, and they didn't do very well. This is making a pumpkin over here, I see, but I'm not seeing the amount of pumpkins that I want to see. There's another pumpkin over there in the ube yams. I think I saw one on the pathway back in there. There's a little one right here. Little bitty one. This is we've got a big mix of Seminole pumpkin genetics. Some of them are tiny, some of them have necks, some of them are just related cultivars. We just mixed a bunch of machadas together. But this has not actually done super great. I see pumpkins here and there, but not massive yields of pumpkins. There's another compost pile right in here somewhere that we started from. There's another pumpkin. Pumpkin here that's not quite mature yet. Pumpkin over here. Looks like it's another little beanie weenie one that's ready. Now, one thing that happened was a lot of these vines grew through the fence here and made a bunch of pumpkins on the end, and then the cows came over and ate them all. They ate the vines, they ate the pumpkins, they ate everything. So the cows enjoyed the pumpkins. The even if we didn't get to. Here's my other compost pile, it's right there. But I'm not seeing, you know, 500 pounds or 400 pounds per pile right now like I would have liked. But on the other hand, I did almost no work for these. The color looks good. That one, yeah, that'll do. I mean, all we did was throw seeds into compost piles in the spring and just let them run over the grass, and we just kind of mowed the grass around them. So it's not a lot of work, but it's not massive, huge yields. I noticed a little more pumpkin vining was going on here through the ube yams. These are purple ube yam. I'm gonna try and get through here without destroying too much stuff. But I see pumpkins. Maybe they just like the shade, I don't know. There's one further up that I grabbed already, and then here's another one, so it's a little better. It's a little better than it could have been. So they ran from the compost pile through 3 rows of ube underneath and to the first edge here of the fresh row garden, which is pretty wild actually. There's a cucuzza squash right here that ran 40 feet or so into this area. So apparently this is like the place where the cucurbits come and hang out. It's kind of like going down to Sonic and hanging out with your friends at night in the field. Right over there. Well, there we go. That's probably coming up on 120, 150 pounds. We'll have to weigh it and find out. But not the incredible yields that we wanted, but still, it was no work yields. So we'll take what we can get. But my dream of 4,000 pounds, I'm just gonna have to plant more next year. Fortunately, the pigs planted some for us, and we got a lot of pumpkins out there. When you deal with living systems, you're dealing with a certain level of uncertainty from year to year. We have the chaos of changing weather from year to year. You have different genetics, you have different situations, you have different pest problems that show up from year to year. And so sometimes you'll have an exceptional year and you'll say, this is it. This is the thing that I can always rely on. And then you'll find the next year it doesn't do that hot. But you do know that it's possible to have an absolutely awesome year. So you keep going with that thing. If you did it and it was bad every single year, you wouldn't bother trying again. And look at this mess. See all these? The vines have been dying back, but these are all pumpkins that we haven't pulled in yet. And there's a lot of them out here. These are not Seminole pumpkins for the most part. There's some Seminoles in here, but there's a lot of Maxima pumpkins in here. And some of them have been completely destroyed by pickleworms, which showed up to plague proportions. And these ones that have been destroyed like this, they go to the pigs, and the pigs wolf them down. So it's pretty disgusting. This is the first year we've had to deal with pickleworms like this. But our earlier ones, the ones that came in first, there were no sign of this until this last week, and then a plague of pickleworms came through here. So some of these guys are totally fine. Some of them show a little bit of damage. Some of them are going to be all right. They'll come out of it. Other ones are just going to rot. There's some pretty big pumpkins in here. And this was accidental, so it's kind of a nice thing to have accidental pumpkins. I mean, I like the idea of a gigantic, like, mountain of pumpkins, but I don't really need a gigantic mountain of pumpkins. Just the ones we harvested last year, which was about half of what we're probably going to get this year, were enough for us to eat all the way through the winter and to still have some left over. There are still some inside that we haven't eaten from last year, so I may just be a little bit greedy. One pumpkin? One pumpkin?
the ducks found their way over here. And I bet they're eating the pickle worms, which means they may be solving our problem for next year.
This one looks like a peanut. I think by the time we pick all the pumpkins that are ready in the food forest along with the pumpkins in the old pig pen, we're probably gonna hit 1,000 pounds. So let's see. We're getting wormy. We don't want the wormy ones. Some of them will recover from the worm damage and some of them will not. Like this one's just got a mess of gross worms on it. So these worms have got to go. They can recover. A pumpkin can heal from a small amount of damage, but this is a pretty gross amount of damage, and sometimes it just means they rot. And they should be pig food instead, or you need to eat them soon. You've never had a plague of pickle worms like this before. Get those little worms off there. Where are my ducks? That one's pig food, look at that. That is a lot of worms. Just a plague of them all of a sudden. It's terrible. All over it.
Snail! Look! Snail!
Snail too. I wish the snail would eat the worms. Here, eat them. Good snail. Good snail.
This is where someone might say that if you sprayed your pumpkins, you would have less pest damage and more vegetables to eat at the end of the season. And that is true. If we had sprayed this, we might not have the worm problem that we have now. However, we would have sprayed pumpkins with poison on them. And fruits and vegetables that have some pest damage, that shows you something. That shows you that it's worth eating. Okay, you want to have fruits and vegetables that something wants to eat, something desires to eat it. If a pest does not desire to eat it, it's poisoned. It's not good to eat. You don't actually want to eat it. Ideally, we don't have this kind of pest damage, but it shows you that the item is worth eating. And we will try to avoid this sort of pest damage for the future. Maybe the ducks will help next year. Maybe moving them to the pumpkins to a different location next year will be helpful. Something else, sure, but poison is not the answer. You don't want to eat poison.
So we've weighed all of these so far from out in the yard and just have 3 more on the scale we're gonna weigh and see what our final total is. So we started with 584 and then all of these are successive weighings here. Not bad. So for the year so far, we are up to 1,931 pounds of produce total. That's not bad. We might beat last year. Do you want to grow a food forest in Florida? Do you want to be a better Florida gardener? Are you tired of the sand and the bugs and everything else? Do you feel like you're always failing? Fail no more. Scrub Fest 3 is taking place in Fort McCoy, Florida at the Scrubland Farms Nursery. And it is a fantastic Florida food forest and food gardening event. It happens on Saturday, October 19th. I'm going to be there. We're also going to have Florida Bullfrog talking about survival chickens. We've got Amanda Merrick talking about edible landscaping for Florida. Randall White is going to be there talking about how to grow temperate fruit trees in Florida. And I'm going to be talking about food forests. We'll have books, we'll have t-shirts, we'll have food vendors, we'll have a big play area for the kids, and all kids get in for free. So I will put a link to this event below. You totally got to check it out. It is going to reinvigorate your Florida gardening and change your life forever. Get your food forest in the ground before Halloween. Come and join us at Scrub Fest 3. So after all that, 1,029 pounds of pumpkins. So many pumpkins, I had to put on my nice shirt. Thanks for joining us. Have you grown any pumpkins before? They are a very useful survival staple crop, and if you haven't, I highly recommend it. Catch you next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green.